Good evening, everyone. I am Council President Mally Rosado, and I am calling to order this public comment meeting of June 8th, 2020. Thank you all for being here with us this evening. Once again, I am going to ask that everyone mute their phones and be respectful of everyone else's time. For some housekeeping rules, no member of the public shall speak more than 3 minutes. It is the duty of the presiding officer to enforce that time in an adequate fashion. During public comment, council is not to engage with the public or vice versa and ask any questions. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the council shall be forthwith there by the presiding officer. From further audience at said meeting, unless permission remain and is granted by 2/3 of the vote of the council members and voting. During the public comment, there shall not be a debate by council, nor shall, once again, council members ask any questions. With that said, we're now going into our public comment section. And the first person on our list is Tiana Victoria Hercules. Could you please state your name and your address for the record before speaking?
I just want to make sure everybody can hear me because I wasn't able to be heard earlier. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. This is Tiana Hercules. I reside at 33 Sargent Street in Hartford, Connecticut. I love this city, as many of you do, and I will be the first to acknowledge that our police department is probably strides ahead of many around our nation. However, I feel that this is a pivotal moment, and if we are truly committed to doing justice and truly committed to eliminating the beast that is structural racism, I think we have to acknowledge the history of the police force in this country. It is an arm of racism, and I believe that the only true way to eradicate structural racism is to dismantle the police force. I know that is a radical thing. I know that may be a scary thought to many, but if we are to envision a community that is healthy on all spheres of our society, economically, health-wise, educationally, housing security, food security, that is a community that does not need a paramilitary organization to keep it safe. That is a community that is able to keep itself safe by investing the power in the people. And so while this may be a radical departure from where we are now, I do feel that one way to begin there is by disinvesting in the police department, investing in some of our social networks that can truly support our citizens. If we believe that supporting our citizens is of the utmost importance versus policing our citizens, then I think we can envision a different way to distribute our budget. And so again, while I know this is maybe a radical departure from where we are, in Hartford is well beyond many other police forces around the country. I do feel Hartford has an opportunity to be courageous and to be bold. Sorry, I'm outside. And to set a different example. There are models around the country where this has worked in cities that are crime-ridden or were crime-ridden. So I don't think that Hartford is any different. We are a remarkable city, and I think that we can be a pillar for eradicating racism. And I do believe it starts with dismantling an arm of structural racism, which is a police force. So I would implore the council to really consider ways to redistribute our already very tight budget. I do recognize that. However, I feel that this is a bold step. In order to eradicate racism, we have to be audacious, we have to be courageous, and we have to do things that have not been done before. And so this does not mean stripping away some of the great things from our police department, some of the great community resources and disinvesting in the community policing aspect, but possibly looking at areas that may no longer be necessary and start to reinvest that money in the community. Because again, whether we want to admit it or not, the police force is an arm of institutional racism, and until it is eliminated, it will continue to be so. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hercules. Next on the list is Alyssa Peterson. If you could please state your name and address for the record. Alyssa Peterson?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah, you're up for public comment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Good evening, council members. Alyssa Peterson, 297 Grandview Terrace. I do not support the creation of an independent police review board as proposed by resolution number 10. It is a publicity stunt of a desperate politician. It can have no meaningful outcome because of the existing police contract and because Hartford is still under a federal court decree already intended to improve racial hiring, police training, and update police procedurals, including firearms discharge review. If you want change, update the Synthron-Vaughn Committee. Have it convene public meetings and hearings, engage all sides, and have it present findings to a federal magistrate. Other cities nationwide would love to have an existing decree still open in the courts with which they could cause meaningful change. I know I was federally appointed to the Syntron Negotiating Committee where I met, reviewed, went to hearings, and participated in police policy rewrites for 7 years. Our work was overseen by 2 excellent attorneys. Because of community efforts led by Maple Avenue NRZ, Blue Hill Civic, Mothers United Against Violence, and because of changes resulting from other police settlements, anti-gang and anti-domestic violence initiatives, and significant changes in executive police management, I am so proud of my city and Hartford police officers for keeping relative peace these many years. Instead, council wrongly wants greater review and accountability of 430 officers when you can't even review the shameful and false conduct of one of your own, per the Hartford Charter. That conduct had been reported 2 years ago by the Hartford Current when the city was sued, and the Current's editorial board called for the resignation of our former council president. I disagreed with their characterizations, and as a white woman, I supported due process for a Black man whom I felt was improperly accused. Fast forward 2 years later, and after this council voted to pay out $140,000 with no explanation, I exercised my right and filed an FOI request. The text and depositions I received provided no defense, as this council person had falsely claimed and showed Mayor Bronin and staff knew of the further severity of conduct. My support for this council person was wrong and misplaced. And so last week, I quietly took my concerns to 5 council members whom I thought were unconflicted and who worked for nonprofits in the state of Connecticut. I heard nothing from you. Instead, 1 or 2 of you leaked my confidential letter and documents to a witness, and I was publicly attacked online by a district chair of the Hartford Democratic Party. The FOI documents revealed there was a serious problem with discrimination in the council office and show the former council president had an office crush and couldn't restrain himself. This council must sit in judgment of this member and get his resignation before you make one move toward any additional oversight of 430 police officers. I will also take my concerns to the Women's Commission. God help you if you think Majority Leader Clark should serve any longer on council or be any kind of official voice for the public or the council relative to future public oversight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will take these comments to the Hartford Current, the AP Newswire, and local, state, and national police organizations.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Leslie Hammond. Leslie Hammond, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Leslie Hammond. Can you hear me?
Yes.
1 Linden Place. A few things. Great to have civic engagement. It's awesome. I hope people demand accountability of City Hall. That would be great. Secondly, bravo to Mr. Looney. I'm really glad that he's going to be promoted to Director of Public Works. And I'm not sure why Bronin picked somebody from the outside before, because obviously he was the wrong person for Hartford and did not get the community engagement that's so important. I really hope that you all also consider urging Patrell Mailer to be promoted to Assistant Director of Public Works. She's one of the most amazing employees we have in the city of Hartford, gets back to us during vacations, weekends, all kinds of time. Very smart and very dedicated. Yes, to cutting the police budget. I feel that money should go into the pitiful health and human resource budget that's so desperately needed now that we've seen from COVID and we've known for a long time. No to a new advisory board. It's ridiculous. And certainly if Bronin's going to pick the people, it's even more ridiculous. Put Ricardo Torres back on the Police Civilian Review Board. He was on before. He started to really make traction. And then Bronin took him off and the review board didn't meet for a whole year. So the review board has some really good people on it now, but they need more members and more support. We already have something in place. Stop reinventing something new just to have it be like a political stunt. It's a waste of time and it just keeps us off track of what we need to do. And lastly, I also read all the depositions having to do with the $140,000 payout. I read every word, hundreds of pages, and I am just shocked and really just, you know, I just want to weep over the sexual harassment text, the toxic workplace, the sexism, and the dysfunction that was happening in City Hall and in the council office. And the sexism, I mean, it just all appalls me now that we're in 2020. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Next on the line is Emily Napier. Emily?
Hi, council members. My name is Emily Napier. I live at 370 Asylum Street, apartment 306. I'm here to express my concern about the proposed increase to the police. We should not be increasing the police budget. I agree what has been said that we should instead be reallocating funds to community programs. As a white resident, I believe we should be listening to our Black and brown residents that are protesting right now and are traditionally over-policed, and we need to divest funding from the police program and put it into our communities instead. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next,
Thank you.
next is Emily Giaquinto. Emily?
Emily Gianquinto, I'm at 316 White Street. I had originally written in to speak on decreasing the funding to the police department. However, as an employment lawyer, I did want to just briefly echo the concerns of my fellow citizens about the behavior of the council chair, and I will leave that at that. I am not someone who's going to sit here and say that I think the police department should be entirely defunded or that I think we don't need police. I wrote in written comments to council members, which I hope you've all read. I've only heard back from 3 of you. Thank you to those who have responded. I appreciate that. I know you got a lot of comments. I look at the budget as a way of looking at the city's values and the city's priorities. I was frankly shocked to learn that our police force is more than twice the average nationally per capita. I don't think that Hartford is either twice as safe because we have that many more police officers or twice as dangerous and therefore needs that many police officers. I've lived here for more than 15 years and been a homeowner for 11. And I've lived in other cities. I don't feel any safer or any less safe than I have in any other city that I've lived in. I think that our priority as a city is out of whack. I think that we should be looking at least gradually decreasing the funding for the police and instead spending it on things that make city residents' lives better. I put a couple examples in my email to everyone, but off the top of my head, yeah, more money should be going to the Children and Youth Services Department. More money should be going to the Department of Public Works. More money should be going to jobs training. There's no reason that those of us in this city should be sacrificing other services or shouldn't be able to provide vital government services because we are funding more than twice as many police officers as the average city needs. So that's the summation of my comments. I thank you all for taking public comment. But I do hope that you're really listening, because I don't think you have a bunch of crazy people on the phone who think you should just slash the budget without consideration. I understand that some of you are probably looking at this as a knee-jerk reaction to what is going on, and I do not think that is true. I think this is kind of the tipping point, and that a lot of us are just finally speaking up about some of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next up on the list is Kenneth Greene. Kenneth Greene? Kenneth, are you on the line with us?
If Kenneth not there, Hyacinth will talk.
Hyacinth, somebody else is before you. Kenneth Greene?
Okay, I just couldn't get through.
Okay. If you could mute your phone, please. Kenneth Greene? Okay. Next up on our list, we'll come back to Kenneth Greene if he pops up back on our screen. Raquel Calderon. Raquel Calderon?
Oh, I gotta turn this into the office.
Raquel Calderon? Raquel Calderon? Next on the list is Hyacinth Yenny. Hyacinth? Hyacinth? Okay, going back to Kenneth Greene. Is Kenneth Greene on the line? Raquel Calderon? Hyacinth Yenny? Next is Jordan Jackson. Jordan Jackson,
Hi, yes, I'm here.
you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. My name is Jordan Jackson, and I reside at 111 Pearl Street, Hartford, Connecticut. And I just wanted to share my thoughts as a Black man in America and a Black immigrant at that. There's just so many different thoughts that go through my mind every time I pass a police officer, every time I open my cell phone or turn the TV on and I see something going on where there's somebody, a person of color being assaulted in their home, whether they're jogging, whatever it is, they're being assaulted. And I don't think the solution to that problem is increasing the funding in the very root cause of the problem. I just think that defeats the purpose. I feel like what we should be doing is investing in better social institutions and structures that benefit the community. Because I came here and for the first couple of years, there wasn't much I could do, and I had the ability to go to the and now I'm able to support myself, and I'm living, and I'm staying out of trouble. So I'm just saying it's situations like these that really show you that as a society we need to really go back to the drawing board and come up with solutions that actually develop us as a people and not tear down one another, because we're going to get nowhere doing that. And I realize that now I just need to speak the language of a capitalist economy. And with doing that, I'm just saying that the community should always hold their leaders accountable. So with us not seeing any action going further, I feel like me and all the taxpayers should take our money elsewhere. The cities that are actually starting to foster change in this country, because it has to stop. Every time I go outside, I'm worried about myself. I'm worried about my friends. I'm worried about every other Black person in this country, across the world. It has to stop. It has to stop. The policing was started from slavery. Why is it in 2020 we have a system that's policing and incarcerating people, mass incarceration. For what? Why aren't we rehabilitating these people? Why aren't we trying to develop our economy further? Why are we tearing it down? That's just all I have to say about this. There's just so much more to say about it, but I respect you guys giving me the outlet. There's so much more I have to share about it. I can't even read my thoughts. I can't think. It's affecting me, and I'm not the person out there being assaulted.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Your time is up. Thank you for your comments. We're going back to the screen. If everyone again can mute their phones, please. I still hear some background noise. Is Kenneth Greene on the screen? Kenneth Greene?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I want to speak to item number 5, the residency. I don't know if that's an action item, but I think that with the COVID-19 situation and folks not being able to go down to City Hall and get a full understanding, I do not believe that we should change it. I think we should strengthen it, where those who are in department heads should be required to live in the city. I think that when you live in your city, you take pride in it, and you talk about your community. It's very difficult to have the leadership of our departments not be in the city. So I think that we should have a stronger residency rule. So I do not believe that we should weaken that in any way. Item number 9, the legislative liaison for the city of Hartford. I'm a former state representative, and we've had not only departments, but cities have had legislative liaisons. I don't necessarily believe that you need to have legislative and legal expertise with that. I believe that because you have a corporation counsel, that whoever you get needs to have communication skills, knowledge of policy development, and that the corporation counsel will work with the legislative liaison. I am retired and more than willing to be considered for the job at no more at $150 an hour. So when you talk about a resolution that says no more than $250, I can tell you that I can bid and tell you I would not charge you more than $150. I believe that I have the expertise. I think that for the legislative liaison, you need to make sure that you outline the goals for the city in terms of its relationship with the state, and you make that known to the public so that they can have input. Item number 10, the Police Accountability Review Board. I believe the concept sounds good. I caution what I believe is somewhat of a knee-jerk reaction to some of the things going on in the country that is not new, and now we're talking about reforming the police. I think that you should, one, strengthen the Civilian Review Board. I believe I read something today that the mayor wants to do that. I'd be interested to know what those steps are to strengthen it. I would also suggest that there's more members on it that are appointed by various community groups to be on it and not just political appointments. If you're going to do a police accountability review board, I think that you should need to have subpoena powers. There need to be consequences if there's any finding of wrongdoing, or a process where they can recommend to a body to recommend outside the police department. I would recommend a committee of 11 to 13 people from the community and 6 to 7 non-voting experts. I would not want to just have experts on that committee that are voting. So when you have police, legal, corporation counsel, and political representation, they be non-voting members, and only the citizens without any of those affiliations, being an employee of the city, be on it. I think that the city council can, I'm getting a lot of interference.
Mr. Greene, thank you for your comments. Your time is up. You are more than welcome to write to council with your additional comments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next is Raquel Calderon. Is Raquel Calderon on the line with us? Hyacinth Yanni. Hyacinth? Next on the list is Gary Long.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Hyacinth.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well this evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I am here as a community leader, very much involved in the neighborhood. And one of the things I'm concerned about, first I should say, I want to do support number one, the director for public works. And then the next thing I want to also make sure Patrell Naylor is appointed into some kind of a leadership role, for the simple reason is Patrell has been like one of the connection, the line to getting anything done in the city of Hartford. So I'm hoping that somebody will look at her favorable for some position there. The other thing I'm concerned about is the idea of the working family putting resolution around defunding the police department. For some reason, they have a gripe on the police department, and I'm very much concerned about that because we didn't elect them to go there to take side on anything. We talk about sitting down and having a conversation, working together to make things better for our community. And thank God that we had the previous previous chief there that set the foundation for us to follow. And our new chief is going to continue to build a relationship. Our police department can continue to train and learn. I thought I heard something about putting money towards social service. Well, we have the state and local government and federal government who is supposed to be providing services when it comes to social service, not taking away from the police department. I'm not sure how many of you heard what happened over the weekend. It was like terror in the neighborhood. If we don't have law and order in our city, we will become a lawless city. So I'm asking you, please, carefully consider, we cannot support that resolution to defund our police department, okay? And I thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Yanning. Next on the list is Gannon Long.
Yes,
Gannon Long?
Some rubber or something?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. My name is Gannon Long. I live at 49 Hungerford Street. I also grew up in Hartford. I'm also a graduate of Hartford High in the Hartford Public Schools. I'm saying my comments as a Hartford resident who cares deeply about the city and our future together. And I'm speaking up to ask you to defund the Hartford Police Department. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do every single department, but the idea of increasing funding for any line of that budget, or cutting funding more drastically for services for youth employment, for housing inspectors, for education, for any other number, for public works and slower streets and safe roads, any other number of things that we are sacrificing so that we can employ a department of police officers who make our residents afraid and who are 90% plus live outside of the city. We are funding a jobs program so that all of the towns around us can take our city's tax dollars and invest them in the economies that do not contribute to our own people. So for all of you who focus on quality of life, I urge you to take that seriously. A budget is a moral document. I wrote you all an email about this last week. I hope a few of you had a chance to read it. But these are all zero-sum choices. And instead of coming up with some board of volunteers that's going to take you all a year to set up, and that all of the members are going to be appointed by the mayor and ratified by you, who don't go against the mayor, that we have several committees and boards. The police chief right now is the person who makes the ultimate decision. So unless he decides to go along with what these people recommend, no actual change is going to happen. The mayor himself has said he doesn't want to substitute his judgment for the chief. You all are our civilian government. The police should answer to you. They should answer to the mayor. And when they don't answer to the mayor, you should be asking the mayor, why is that? I was very impressed to see the proposal that Councilors Mitchum and Bermudez put together. It's very simple. They've been engaging the public. They've been taking people's input. They've been sharing what their positions are. As far as I can tell, Councilman Gale supports the idea of reducing police funding, and it's just a question of how much and when. But the rest of you haven't even taken a public position on this very moral, basic question. Do you want to invest more resources into a Hartford Police Department that makes young Black kids in our city feel afraid, who don't live in our city, who don't answer to the mayor unless they want to, who obfuscate information from the public and keep us from knowing basic facts about how our government works and how this force of people with guns operates in our city? Or do you want to face those kids, look at them in the eye, and tell them that instead you're going to invest more money in their arts programs? You're going to bring in community experts to teach about Black history in their schools. You're going to invest in sports programs and public parks so that we can have a swim team in our city so that these kids can be outside. There's a million ways to spend that money other than police, who we need to start defunding line by line. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Next on the line is Victoria Fennell. Victoria Fennell, are you on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay, great. First of all, I just want to voice support for the proposed cuts to the police department. I think the 25% that's being mentioned as the figure. I would strongly suggest that we do direct these funds to community-based programs. I feel that nonprofit organizations could use the funds to help them continue to perform the valuable work on the ground because they're already doing it. And also we should be addressing Hartford's high rate of poverty, which the nonprofits are doing admirably, and not adding to militarizing efforts here. I say this as the daughter of a retired Hartford Police Department assistant chief of police, okay? So this is not anti-cop. Very supportive of the police when they are doing right, not when they're doing wrong. And at one point in this city, our police department was a model for the country in the 70s in terms of community policing and outreach to the community. So I think that the cuts, however you all decide to do that, we're not talking about disbanding the police department. We're just talking about looking at a different way of doing things. I know that Minneapolis City Council did something a few days ago. I think maybe you all ought to look at something along those lines. Okay, not necessarily disbanding the police department. We need our police department, but there are certain functions that I think that nonprofit organizations are already doing and can do a better job of, and it's not a waste of police resources. Second point is I am not in favor as far as the Independent Police Review Board. I understand that the council majority leader, who's the lead sponsor on the resolution, wanted to add the mayor to this. I do not think that the mayor should be involved in the review board. You're injecting politics into this. The idea is to remain independent, meaning free from outside interference or authority. This is something that no mayor in the history of this city has ever been involved with. And I don't think we should start right now. In addition, we mentioned as far as the Accountability Review Board with some of the areas that they're including about recruitment and hiring practices, use of weapons and community outreach. That's great, but where does the police discipline factor in to this as far as formal recommendations to the chief? So I say strengthen the police review, civilian review board, give it teeth, just like former Representative Ken Greene said, give it subpoena power, fund it properly so that the people can do the job. And so that's my comment at this point. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I love my city, and thank you again.
Thank you. Next on the line is Raquel Calderon. Raquel, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
You have the floor.
I am here. Yes, do you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have the floor.
Okay, so good afternoon with everyone. I just have two things that I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about the violence that is going in the country, which is really sad. And I do support the organized people to organize to protest for something that they're not happy with. But also, I believe that the many officers are really good, especially here in Connecticut, and we should not generalize. And the reason that I'm saying that is because some people are taking advantage of this situation and not respecting officers anymore. Like, for example, yesterday, it was a big chaos in the south end of Hartford. They did not listen. The city is trash, the south of Hartford, and I hope the city council addresses to the public works so they can come and clean it up. And and I think that we supposed to support the police officers because everybody's not equal. Everybody does not treat our citizens without respect and dignity. There's many officers that are really good, and we should not be talking against them because then they're gonna back off and they're not gonna protect us. We need them. The other thing that I wanted to is about the COVID-19. Please, yes, be careful and just follow direct governor demand. Stay 6 foot apart and be conscious. If you're not gonna follow directions, then we're living right now. I mean, and then it's why people are not alone, and they segregate themselves because I'm listening and people are not listening. So it's that I'm concerned. We are all humans, and we all live and respect it. That's all I have to say for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calderon. Next on our list is Emily Yen. Emily, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
You have the floor.
Hi, I am Dr. Emily Yen. I reside at 28 Oliver Street, Apartment 1, Hartford, Connecticut, 06106. I'm calling to express my opposition to increasing the police budget. Hartford is a minority-majority city with 80% of the residents who are Black or Latinx. As a sociologist, I want you to understand that police brutality is rooted in white supremacy and anti-Blackness. Even though that you have individual cops who act in ethical ways, I see this as a structural issue. Like many Hartford residents, I mourn the violent deaths of Nina Pop, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, George Floyd, and many others. 21 people have been killed by police officers in the past 5 years in the state of Connecticut. This isn't a matter of a few bad cops. This is a problem, an institutional problem, and police violence inflicts violence on communities of color and contribute to the dehumanization and divestment of our communities. Hartford City's police department has more than twice as many cops per capita than the average in the United States. I see no reason to increase the police budget. I highly encourage you to divest in police, especially given the makeup of our city, of your constituents. I strongly believe that this money should be redirected towards housing, increasing food security, healthcare access, as well as high quality education. And I hope that the City Council would ideally like to see them take a principled stance like the Minneapolis Police Department, the Minneapolis City Council, where they called for the disbandment of the police office. Disbandment. I know it's a very difficult decision whether how to reinvest and community policing solutions. There are a number of models that are very successful throughout the country. I hope that you consider that. And that would be consider that. And if you are unwilling to take that stance, I hope that you redirect more slowly. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Next on the list is Donna Swore. Donna, are you on the line?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
You have the floor. Yes, we can.
Okay, Donna Swore, number 8, Schultes Place. Item number 1, fully endorse Michael Looney as the next Director of Public Services. And I also would like to see, like others, Naylor in a leadership position. Her outstanding service to the community and her deep knowledge of the department would greatly help the department move forward. Number 10, the Hartford Police Accountability Review Board. In light of the national spotlight on George Flynn's murder by his own police force, I can understand why the council is looking at the Accountability Review Board. I did a comparison between the existing and the newly proposed boards. The new board's purpose was expanded beyond the review of complaints, and some of them appear to be an improvement, but some of them may be overreaching. The membership of the new board was described as members of civil rights organizations, legal professionals, and city personnel, and all were listed desired to be Hartford residents. That's similar to what the original review board has. They were also selected based upon their experience and expertise in fields related and relevant to the charge of the civilian review board process. They also included, though, the city neighborhoods, communities, business, labor, legal, and ethnic, gender, racial, and sexual orientation composition to be considered. The most notable and concerning change is the inclusion of city staff. It didn't specify whether they were going to be voting members, but that would compromise its independence. The change to appoint members by both the mayor and the city council is a good decision, and I endorse that. And it was pretty much when I looked at your other review boards that you had listed, it looks like it was pretty much equal between the two, and I thought that was a good idea. The existing board has non-voting police representative on the board for the purposes of providing information. I think the inclusion of city staff, mayor, and anyone who works for the police department as voting members is a serious setback regarding the independence. And it also potentially violates the city's ethics codes that should be reviewed. But I see the biggest issue is that the residents' complaints will not receive the attention they do deserve. The review and reporting of these complaints provides transparency as to how problems in the department are handled, and it shines a light on trends regarding officers as well as areas of improvement in terms of training and the need for policy changes. Thank you very much. I appreciate this opportunity to speak, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Swear. Next on the list is Shelby Byrne. Shelby, are you on the line?
Hi, I'm here.
You have the floor.
Oh, yep. Yeah, sorry. I live at 140 Horse Shope Ave in Hartford, Connecticut, apartment 317. I would just like to speak in support of distributing the wealth currently allocated to the police force in Hartford to other community-based organizations better equipped to meet the needs of our Black population who are disproportionately targeted by police. The maximum amount of money allocated to the police could be put into better use in supporting the community directly. I think the historical function of the police is to uphold white supremacist values, and the actions of single good individual won't change the ultimate structure of our militarized police force. Police work as we know it contributes to mass incarceration and death of Black Americans. The so-called bad apples that perpetuate these actions are protected by the system, which in my opinion renders the entire system corrupt. You can't reform a system designed to oppress. Police reform has not proven to be an adequate solution. Minnesota is actively implementing progressive police reform. George Floyd was still strangled to death in broad daylight. I believe we need a drastic change to make things better for non-white members of this community and across the nation. It's time to listen to the Black community and allies in our home state and across the nation in their demands to defund the police. I hope that we can be courageous and take a stand in the face of fascism in the United States and open our eyes to hundreds of years of mistreatment of our Black residents who built the country. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the line is Christina Jackson. Christina Jackson. Christina, it's quite difficult to hear you. Do you think you can move around for a better reception?
and assassination and their demands to defund the police. I hope that courageous.
Hello?
Hello?
Christina? Okay, I will come back to you in a little bit to see if you have better reception somewhere else. Amanda Bilu? Bilu? Amanda? Amanda? Okay. Kaylee Townsend? Kaylee? Norel Thomas?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm not a native of Hartford, but I've lived here off and on for about 3 years. What I wanted to say, I wrote to you all about defunding the police. By this, I meant taking into consideration the voice of the people in Hartford residents into allocating the funds from the disproportionate amount that the police will receive and redistributing it to the youth, the arts, the schools, employment, and whatever the general express needs of the community are, reinvesting in that. The funding should prioritize the holistic and overall health of the people that live here and help to help them feel like they have to live less on the defense and instead live more fully from a place of security, acceptance, and support so that the community can thrive. When people feel boxed in or perpetually struggling or scared, they're more likely to lash out or do things out of desperation. If there's not an equal place to live, then the quality of life diminishes. The consideration would allow people to have more ability and opportunity to expand, revealing and assisting the creation of a different reality than what has been expressed so far. So I just wanted to say thanks for listening and allowing us all to have this platform to express ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina Jackson? Christina Jackson? Amanda? Amanda, you're on the line with us? Kaylee Townsend? Kaylee? Norel Thomas? Norelli Thomas?
She spoke. She spoke.
She spoke? Okay. Brian Stingberg?
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay, I wanted to speak in terms of the Police Civilian Review Board. When Carrie Perry wrote the ordinance for that board, she insisted that if a case comes up where a complainant already put a complaint to the board, that what had happened was that the idea was that that complaint would still be heard on the board as the jury was dealing with the case. And that ends up being extremely important because, as we know, and we've seen concern of this coming from Minnesota, that there are ways in which prejudice and bias can be used by defense attorneys for the police to create a situation where we see tremendous evidence for conviction of a police officer and yet they get off. However, the way it was set up in the ordinance for the Police Civilian Review Board, the case continues while the jury is going. The case on the board continues with the gathering of evidence and more evidence. so that even if things go bad in the jury trial, the evidence gathered by the board can be used by defense attorneys to go to civil court and to get a judgment against the city for allowing a cop like that to be on the force. And this is very important because it gives a mitigating situation to what was a loss in the jury trial by prejudice and manipulation of prejudice on jurors. It still gives money, and usually a very large settlement, to the information gathered at the Civilian Review Board by its maintenance of the case and getting more and more information. This was the intention of Mayor Carey Perry when she introduced the ordinance to the Police Civilian Review Board. It's sad to know that Corporation Counsel stepped in and prevented this from happening for years. And what that did was it denied people the rights to have this procedure in order to sue the city for having these bad cops on. So I think that as we look at the Civilian Review Board being put back together again, that this be held very clearly. It is part of the ordinance, and at any rate, it's just sad that Corporation Counsel for so long violated this. And it only came up because of the Police Civilian Review Board discussion, not this present one, but going back to 2 review boards that brought this up. And then, of course, it was brought up again in the Peralta case.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
Okay,
your comments. Unfortunately, your time is up, but you're more than welcome to write to council with further concerns. Thank you. Next on the line is Lorenzo Blake. Lorenzo? Lorenzo Blake, are you on the line? Calvin Lovejoy? Calvin Lovejoy?
Can
Janice
you hear me?
Fleming? Oh, I'm sorry. Is this who is this?
I'm sorry. This is Brother Lovejoy.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Wonderful, wonderful. I want to thank council for allowing me these brief moments to speak. I will start off with this quote. Wherever there's gross poverty, you will find gross systemic oppression. I am here this evening to share my thoughts in support of the proposal to reallocate funding from the police budget to support education initiatives in the city of Hartford, as well as community-based efforts to support public safety. I am also in support of any efforts that dial back the effort to demilitarize the Hartford Police Department. The city of Hartford, along with the police department, is currently involved in a national initiative known as Community-Based Crime Reduction, and the goal is to reduce crime as well as to improve the relationship between the police department and the community. The reallocation of these funds could easily help to continue grassroots efforts to reduce crime in North and South Hartford and to further develop the better relations with the Hartford Police Department. We would like to entertain an opportunity to bring our young leaders who are currently operating in this initiative to City Council, so they can hear what they have learned regarding crime reduction in the city of Hartford. Lastly, we do not support the efforts of a civilian review board that if it continues the type of loose engagement and lack of accountability outlined in the recent Hartford Current article. In a city that is predominantly Black and brown, the police department needs to feel more like protect and serve and less like occupy and oppress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Janice Fleming? Janice Fleming?
I'm here. My name is Janice. My name is Janice. Can somebody put their phone on mute? My name is Janice Fleming. I'm at 141 Richfield Street in Hartford. I am speaking on the behalf of Voices of Women of Color. The number one on the agenda, we support Looney with the same echo as everyone else, that we would like to see Patrell as a deputy mayor. She is a Hartford resident, and really we can't get nothing done on a quality of life issue without Patrell in that seat. Number two, I don't know why the whole appointment of department head requirements continue to show itself. I feel like it's a sign of weakness of the city to even suggest that Hartford residents cannot be department heads. And I don't like the idea, nor do any of the Voices of Women of Color like the idea of paying for outsiders to oversee us. Number three, the review board, we will never co-sign anything that allows politicians or the mayor to be on it or any appointment power. That makes absolutely no sense to us. And anybody with a half a brain, that makes no sense too. That should not be something that is political. It should be independent. It should have community representation, and community representation will be the ones who interview and decide what legal needs to be involved. Number four, as far as the police department, I've had police officers lie on me. I'm no fan of it at all. I feel that, first of all, I want to say to all of the white women who was highlighting Black Lives Matter today, I'm going to need you to keep that same energy when all of this is over, because we're not a person of color, we're Black, and I'm liking that you're using your words. So what we would like to do is, I like some of the stuff that Will DeLisa and Josh is talking about, moving that over. Me particularly would like to see more money for young people and more money for quality of life issues. Whether you guys realize it or not, our streets look filthy. And so you need to be figuring out what you're going to do for enforcement. I don't agree with the idea of spending more money for another person in council. You already have an A making $70,000 and several others. Have them figure out what it is that you need to do, and corporate counsel will always bring you your legal. So no, that's a no-go for me as well. So more money towards quality of life issues in youth, taking money away from the police department. I do like the idea of having CSOs. However, I'm sure we could take money from the drug task force and other areas. Thank you. Hello?
Council President, you're on mute.
Yes, I am mute. Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Stephen Wilson. Stephen, are you on the line? Stephen Wilson,
here.
you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
I'd like to lend my support to taking funds from the police department and allocating them back to the city youth, specifically into the Hartford public school system. But I would ask that we are there's some type of review board in place to make sure that those funds are being used appropriately. I'd like to echo a gentleman earlier, I don't remember his name, discussing the police officers and having them live in the city. I think that's something that should be mandatory. I understand that you have to deal with police unions and those type of things are negotiated. And I do understand that there is a stipend of some kind for officers who do live in the city. I would ask that be raised because I think it's very important that the people who are here to protect us, we don't just see them when they're in uniform, but we also see them out and about, getting haircuts at the supermarket, what have you. We should be able to see our officers and know our officers, and our officers need to know us to really understand what it takes to protect and serve us. I would also like, going back to the education piece, there's too many schools in Hartford right now that don't have the funding. I'll give you Weaver as an example. A school that has a large population but does not have the funding or the teachers to service those kids. So I would ask that more funding be put into some of these high schools so that these kids, teachers good teachers can be hired. And I also think that a stipend should be given to them as well to live in the city. Myself, I grew up in Hartford, grew up here, lived here all my life. The teachers that I had growing up lived around me. My teachers, my principals, they knew me outside of school, and that helps a lot in terms of trust, because a lot of our students and a lot of our parents don't trust the school system, the school administration, the board. So we need to get back to a place where we can rebuild that trust. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Bernardo Proletarian. Are you on the line?
Blake is back on the line.
I'm sorry, who's back on the line?
Lorenzo Blake.
Lorenzo, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
My name is Lorenzo Blake. I reside at 92 Burnham Street in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm a lifelong resident of Hartford, born to immigrant parents from Jamaica. Full disclosure, I am also a commissioner that just completed his first year on the Civilian Review Board. I am inspired and hopeful, and that so many public comments have supported the efforts of our President Council. And also, I concur and agree with all the speakers that said that it needs more teeth. It needs to be independent from the mayor and the police force. And it has to be able to have the power and the authority to deal out actual punishments for bad behavior and corrosive environments within the police force. I think the sentiment has been well expressed by other speakers. We want a Hartford that is inclusive of every community. Every resident of Hartford should feel safe and protected. So I support any efforts to reform the review board, to give it more teeth, to give it more power to actually impact the behavior of our police force. We want our police force to be something to be proud of, to set an example for the whole nation of how community and police force can work together and affect change. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up is Bernardo Proletariat. Bernardo, are you on the line? Bernardo? Maral Wozniak? Or Wozniak?
Hi, yes, thank you for taking my call. My name is Maral Wozniak. I live at 887 Asylum Avenue, apartment A13. I'm calling, and I would like to echo the sentiments which have already been expressed multiple times for Hartford to stand as an example to our nation for how we can address just one of the many ways systemic racism manifests itself in our society by defunding the police, because Black Lives Matter and our country often acts as if they don't. I understand that there have been changes made to the Hartford Police Department in the past, but I would argue that this is not enough, and we must redirect the public funds from the police department to other departments and organizations that directly benefit and support our residents, especially our children. I've worked in Hartford Public Schools in the past, and I believe that the Hartford Public School system needs better funding, especially they need more social workers, more behavior technicians, more support staff that are going to look out for the emotional well-being of our students in addition to their academic progress. Like I said, I'm in support of the proposed budget cuts to the Hartford Police Department. I love this city. I know that there are really a lot of excellent organizations that provide much needed support to our residents. And I believe that just sometimes there's a dearth of access to them or even awareness. And so we need to do everything we can to support those organizations that are doing real good, that they're doing that are doing well in our community already, and they just need some support and they need to be amplified. Finally, I would like to thank Councilpeople Lildelise Bermudez and Josh Mitchum for the graphics that I saw on Instagram, frankly, because that was what made it really easy for me to get on this call today and to express my concerns and my support for their work in our city council. We need to do more things like this that get younger people involved in the political conversation and to become active in politics on a local level. So I really appreciate everything that they do to make that possible. And that's all from me today. Thank you.
Next on the list is Vicki Gallen Clark. Vicki, are you on the line? Vicki? Vicki, are you on the line? Okay. Siobhan Hamilton? Siobhan Hamilton? Ryan Lindsay? Ryan Lindsay, are you on the line? Laura Palandri?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you have the floor.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm a teacher in Hartford Public Schools. Hi. And I have been, I'm also calling to support defunding and dismantling the police department and rebuilding it in a way that is just grounded in more community-based responses to public safety. Hello? I think that I understand also that it won't happen from one day to the next. Like, obviously, we can't have people calling for help and then nobody's there to pick up the phone. And so I think that in that transition, it would be one way for Hartford to kind of lead the nation on this, since Minneapolis kind of beat us to the is that we could have our public school students take this on as a problem-based learning type of thing, where like from every angle, like there's math, there's science, there's definitely history and geography. It's just that the students in Hartford Public Schools in middle and high school for sure, but maybe even elementary school would be kind of the brain trust for the city, and they could spend the next couple years just studying this and just having a seat at the table. I've just been really disheartened. I've been posting on my Google Classroom, I post like math problem sets, but I also have been posting articles about what's happening. The kids are really interested, but then there's so many kids that just don't feel empowered to just have a voice in there. Like they really want to say that Black Lives Matter, and then but then it kind of ends there for them. And I really think that the schools could be doing more for the kids to have a seat at the table. And the last thing, if I still have time, would be to say that I support not having resource officers in the schools. I know that some schools do restorative justice, but I think we really need to make that just across the board restorative justice. There's still this thing where kids are being removed from classrooms, sometimes physically, and by these resource officers. I mean, that's just not, it's traumatic, and we need to find a better way of doing discipline. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Siobhan Hamilton, are you on the line? Siobhan?
This is Bernardo. I actually got back on the call if I could go.
Okay, just give us one moment, please. Siobhan Hamilton, are you on the line? Vicki Gallen? Vicki Gallen? Vicki Gallen?
She's muted for some reason, Council President.
Okay.
Can you take me off of mute?
Vicki?
Hello?
Can you hear
I'm
me
here.
now?
Can you?
Okay, go
yes.
ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I called in to talk about several things. One was the residency requirement, which I went into detail at last month's meeting as to the reasons why we need city residents to hold city lead positions. So that's one. The other thing is I'm calling to ask the city council to reallocate some of the $45.9 million that is being designated for the police department, and then to reallocate that to departments like the Department of Family, Children, Youth, and Recreation. We need to be able to, like some cities are doing, to provide entrepreneurial training for our youth, to provide employment opportunities for our youth and adults, more money allocated to the Department of Public Works to keep our streets clean and things of that nature. One side note is that the traffic division needs to have weekend hours as well. I'm also calling in about the resolution number 10, in which Mayor Luke Bronin is looking to join the Civilian Police Review Board. The mayor's participation on the board does not bring objectivity to this process at all. As a matter of fact, the best analogy that comes to mind is a rapist going to the parents of a rapist and asking for justice. The objectivity just will not be there when you have your chief public servant on the board. The mayor's job is to look out for the interests of the city, and this is understandable. Therefore, if the mayor is faced with a substantial lawsuit because he's on this board, versus voting with the city, versus voting with the person who is the victim, whose side is the mayor going to lean toward? So to truly address the past issues with the current Civilian Police Review Board, I suggest that the council continue its pursuit of the creation of a new Police Accountability Review Board that includes significant policy reforms. If you and the mayor want the review board to be stronger, allow them to act as board of directors that oversee the police chief and the department, and also have youth as well. So instead of these members being handpicked by the mayor, let them be selected by concerned, committed citizens and residents of the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Siobhan?
Hello? Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have the floor.
Okay.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Siobhan Hamilton, 35 Thomaston Street in Hartford. So I am commenting in regards to number 5 first, which is the departmental head's ordinance, not living in the city of Hartford. I am against the changing of that ordinance because I feel to be ahead of city essential services, you have to live here and understand the people and the culture of the city in order to really be effective in that job. Number 10, which is the accountability board. From my understanding, reading the resolution, it's really about, racial balance within the police force. I think there really isn't a priority need for something like that because there's been different sort of, for lack of a better word, interventions that the police department has done to try to get, more people
more people that live in the city, people of color on the police force. I think it needs to be actually looked at, researched, and strategically planned the efforts into balancing, the demographics of the police force. And I'm also commenting on the budget, in particular, the reallocation of funds to the police department. In my opinion, in order to increase budgeting, we need to really understand if what the police is doing right now is effective and efficient. Every summer here in Hartford, there's a shooting on the very first day of summer. And ever since I've been born here, it's happened. And we're adding more money, but it's still not effective. What's happened? There isn't a strategy. So you add money when there's actually a strategy that's put in place. I think that reallocating to the health department would be great. Coming back here in 2015, I started my own nonprofit organization because I felt that health wasn't a priority for the city, and engaging with the communities that experience health disparities. As I look through the budget, one of the strategies for the health department is to really look at the health disparities that came to light after COVID-19. When we're decreasing the budget of the health department, that's not illustrating what you're saying. And so to, again, take away vital health services for people that you now have realized that are experiencing a lot of health disparities throughout the city, I don't think is a good thing. So really reallocating funds to the health department would be better than increasing it to the police department. And lastly, and to talk about the police department as well, is that, one of the things that Mayor Bonin said in his Facebook post was that we would be taking away, community officers, Officer Barrett, and those things. But community work doesn't have to be done by police officers. It can be done by actual community people, social workers, people in social service capacities to provide that same type of service. So it doesn't have to be, again, done by police officers. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone on the line who has not spoken?
Yeah, this is Bernardo. I was called, but y'all couldn't hear me.
Thank you, Bernardo. Please state your name and address for the record, and then after that, you have the floor.
Bernardo McLaughlin, 286 Sargent Street. I am a graduate of Capital Community College. I've been a Hartford resident on and off since 2003, and I'm an elected steward at my job. I'm speaking in favor of the total abolition of the Hartford Police Department. This organization has, for generations, acted as an occupying force of white suburbanite thugs that oppresses Black and brown communities every single day, and furthermore has exhibited open and unequal hostility toward progressive forces fighting for the dignity of all people. At a moment when fascist dictatorship is a political reality in this country in 2020, Hartford must state unequivocally that it is anti-fascist and anti-racist, and committing our communities to those principles is completely inconsistent with funding and tolerating what is clearly a white supremacist, paramilitary, independent political organization. I will cite HPD's defense of white anti-abortion extremists harassing people outside of the OBGYN clinic, their huge mobilization of militarized forces against any public demonstration of progressive organizations, and their total absence from the streets in front of the convention center in 2016 when our now president visited Hartford and his racist supporters confronted anti-racist activists protesting peacefully, despite the fact that HPD racked up tens of thousands of dollars in overtime on that day alone. When Trump does move once again to seize power with brute force, it will be the fascist Hartford Police Department that will try and clear the streets as we fight back against dictatorship. We cannot risk having forces like HPD operating with impunity in the Black and brown communities that the federal government is hell-bent on committing genocide against. Never again is now. Abolish the police. All Black Lives Matter.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else on the line who has not participated yet, who wishes to speak? Is there anyone on the line who has not participated yet, who wishes to speak? Hello?
Hello?
Yes. What is your name?
Hi, my name is Silas Vasquez. I'm a Hartford resident, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. A racist mythology is what pins Hartford residents as ungovernable, incapable of determining what laws we want for ourselves. The cops don't protect us. They take forever to answer calls. They harass women and poor folks constantly. Why should we trust them when it effectively acts as the violent wing of a dysfunctional insurance nonprofit complex? We are bound to call out the hypocrisy on our local level. We must defund the police 100%. We also demand an immediate and entire freeze to Mayor Bronin's proposed budget. While the police are working overtime to clean up their image by walking alongside us at the demonstrations with guns at their hips, we must acknowledge our community is hurting and that the police have undeniably failed us in replacing real community care, or what many people think social services should be doing. When the police are killing our young people and their fellow officers turn a blind eye, it is a matter of life and death for Hartford's young residents that we apply new methods of community care. 25% proposed police budget reduction is a slap in the face. Defund the police 100% and immediately reinvest in community-led programs. When car ownership is less than the national average and the city prioritized a baseball field over access to healthy food for its residents, how is that not violence towards the Hartford community? How many have had the luxury of ordering out and grocery shopping out of town throughout the pandemic? While those who are from the city, there's money for police and for city workers' salaries, but no money to feed the folks that live here. We demand to be able to nourish and feed ourselves. Defund the police 100% and reinvest in the health of our citizens. When home ownership in Hartford is around 23%, what that means is every other head of household has to pay rent. Those that pay their mortgages through the blood, sweat, and tears of others or collecting rent have been cozy throughout the pandemic, while many working families are out of work and income. There is money for police and schools, but no money for people to have a safe place to live. And Black Lives Matter means Black people having a safe place to sleep at night. Defund the police 100%. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the line who still has not participated in public comment? Is there anyone else on the line? I'm sorry? Is there anyone else on the line that has not participated in public comment? Going once?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes?
Did you have to sign up in advance in order to participate in public comment?
Yes, you did, ma'am. Yes, you did.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone, for participating today in public comment. Council does take all your comments very seriously. As you know, we will be taking a break and reconvening back in 10 minutes for our council meeting. With that said, public comment is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you shortly.